Hey, what's going on YouTube? In today's video, I'm going to break down the steps you can take to launch your local small business website within one day. All right? It'll take you less than a day to do this. In fact, it could take you just a couple of hours depending on how quick you are. Probably a little longer than that, but you can do this within the day. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here is the breakdown. So now, as you can see, I started with pick your niche, right? So this is someone who is basically just trying to start a website for the first time or trying to start a new business, and they're trying to think, well, what business should I do, right? So let's assume that you don't have a business for now, right? Let's say that you're looking into doing SEO, or you're looking into becoming a freelance writer and you're trying to launch a website. Okay, well, determine what your niche is going to be if that's the case, and then run with it, all right? But if you already have your niche selected, then that's excellent. This step does not pertain to you. The next step is to determine the keywords in your niche based on the city. So keyword research is going to be something that's going to continue on throughout the course of your website, right? From these initial pre-launch stages to the actual launch, to the post-launch, and 3 months in, 6 months in, a year in, you're constantly going to be checking your keywords and optimizing for new ones based on your Google Analytics information and just your overall site performance. But we're going to start with a very basic, initial keyword research. Let's say we're a local website, we're offering services of some kind, or you're a pay-per-lead site offering services, or advertising other companies' services where they pay you for bringing them leads. Then you're going to want to determine what city you want to optimize for, what city you want to target with your website off the bat. Now, obviously, you can target many, many different cities with one website. In fact, I encourage you to do so, because the more pages you have on a domain, the higher the authority of the domain is going to build. And so that's always a good idea to do if you're going to go that route. But let's say that you're just trying to do one city, one niche site. Then you got to determine, okay, well, what cities should I target for my ideal customers, A, and then B, which cities will frankly bring me the most money? Which cities have higher search volumes? Which cities have high CPC? People don't always think of CPC when they think about SEO stuff, but looking at the commercial value is super important for SEO. That CPC value, whether it's $10, $20, that tells you a lot about that keyword. Even if the search volume is under 100, if it has a CPC of $10, $15 per click, that's definitely a term you want to get on page one for, because that term's in high demand, evidently. So that's step two. Right now, once you figured all that out and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go, let's build this thing, the next step is you're going to want to purchase a domain. And you can get it from a number of places, right? I usually buy mine off of GoDaddy. There's Namecheap. There's all sorts of other places where you can buy domains from. You can buy them from your hosting provider. I don't know if you have Bluehost or one of those, HostGator. You can buy them off there. A lot of different places to go, but typically you want to pick a domain that melds your industry and your brand name into one. So there's not really a clear rule to this, right? People say go the exact match route. Exact match domains are literally domains that have the keyword in the host name. So www.plumbingpros.com, it's that keyword you're trying to target. Plumbingcontractors.com, something like that. I think there is something to be said about that in a lot of industries, that can help you with SEO. It can give you, a couple free points right off the bat. But I still don't think that it'll put you so much more over the top that you should go that route. I think you should always consider your brand name first and your keywords secondary in that case. But once you have your domain, then you're going to want to set up hosting, right? You need to have hosting to launch a website. So there's a lot of different hosting providers out there, and I know there's people promoting different ones. There's a lot of people promoting Bluehost, a lot of people promoting HostGator. Some people use GoDaddy. I wouldn't recommend them for hosting. They're fine for buying your domain from, but for actually hosting your website, I don't recommend their hosting services. I would recommend using a place like SiteGround or A2 or WP Engine, something where you're gonna improve the speed of your site, you're gonna improve the quality of your site, and those tend to be the uptime on their customer service tends to be great, right? You want a hosting provider with amazing customer service who will get back to you within an hour and point you in the right direction with little headaches. So I personally use SiteGround, so I'm recommending them right here. I'll include a link in the description to SiteGround because I think they're amazing, and that's what I use for all my websites. Once you have that handled, you have the hosting, then you are going to want to install your CMS, and I recommend WordPress. WordPress is great. There's a lot of different ones out there, right? There's Joomla, Weebly, Wix. I would say go WordPress because WordPress, yes, you're going to have a bit of a learning curve if this is your very first website, but once you figure it out, it's relatively easy to use, and it's just a breeze. Like it handles everything so much better. It's great for customizing your website in any way you want. Whereas with Wix and Weebly, you're working off of templates, and a lot of those are really in the box, and you can't do much with them. With WordPress, it's all customizable. You can do so many things. You can add any combination of plugins you want. You can just do all kinds of stuff with it. So I recommend WordPress, and it's free. WordPress itself is free. It's not like with Wix where you're paying, I don't know, $10 a month or whatever to use their services. It's totally free with WordPress. So I would go that route. Once you have WordPress installed, then it's time to install a theme. It's another point of contention. There's a lot of people that say buy a Veda, buy a GeneratePress, buy a paid theme, a premium theme, and I would agree that you should have a premium theme if this is your big money site and you're trying to make money. But I think okay, let me backtrack a little bit. Yes, you should have a nice theme, but you shouldn't be spending hundreds a month on a website, right? You shouldn't. I'm not calling anyone out here, but you shouldn't have to spend $99 a month on a website. That's my opinion. No offense to anyone who is paying $99 a month to use a website provider. That's totally fine. I have no issue with that. If that's your thing, if you like them, then go for it. I personally wouldn't. But there's a lot of themes that are very affordable. You can get them for $50 or $60 one-time payment. There's Thrive themes. Actually, I use Thrive themes for a lot of my sites. It's like $228 a year, which comes out to $19 a month or something like that. So it's a good deal. Comes with all sorts of plugins, which I'm going to talk about here. But the point is, you want to choose something that looks good, is responsive. People talk about responsiveness a lot, and responsiveness basically means that the website is adaptable onto different screens, and it's really good on mobile. Mobile is the most important aspect of a website these days. Google is really keen on giving their users a good mobile experience, since more than half of internet users use mobile. So that's really important. So you want to pick one. You want to read the reviews and just pick one that makes sense for you and your business. Next, you're going to install plugins. So this is where you're going to have all the extra features that WordPress affords you in the form of plugins. Now, plugins can do a wide range of things. There's plugins for SEO. There's plugins for contact forms. There's plugins for speed, caching. There's all sorts of plugins out there. The thing you want to do here, the thing you want to try to avoid is overstocking your website with plugins, because that can slow it down. Instead, you want to just get a small handful of plugins, like maybe half a dozen or a dozen at the very most plugins that really add value to your website, and get rid of everything else. So I think WordPress comes with 4 or 5 stock plugins, like the Hello Dolly one, Jetpack, Monster, or something like Monster Insights, I think. Just get rid of the ones you're not going to use. So if you're going to use those, then keep them. But if you're not going to use Jetpack, get rid of it. If you're not going to use Ask-A-Met anti-spam or whatever it's called, get rid of it. Just get rid of the stuff you're not going to use. Then it's going to help your site. It's going to speed up your site, and it's going to make it easier to organize everything too. You don't want to have to go, make an adjustment to a plugin and you're scrolling through 50 different ones to find it. It's just not necessary. Once you have those plugins, then you're going to configure them, right? So this just means setting them up in the way that you want, to use them in the optimal way that you want for your website. There's all sorts of ways to do it. There's not really one way to skin a cat here. I would just Google, how do I properly configure this plugin, and you're going to see, 50 forum threads of people in Warrior Forum and other places talking about how to do it. It's really not hard to find. So just configure it. At first you can leave it pretty much out of the box and just test it out and try different things and see what works best for you. Because ultimately, the beauty of WordPress is it's very catered to the individual. So whatever business model you're doing and whatever website you have, you can specify it exactly to those dimensions and standards. Next up, really important that you have a privacy policy and a terms of use page. Now, these aren't mandatory, but they kind of are at the same time. What do I mean? Basically, if something happens, you heard about the GDPR thing in England or in Europe, and that's basically that you really have to make sure you have people's consent before sending them anything, before retargeting them, before doing anything like that. And here in the States and in other places, we don't have the GDPR, but it's still really important that you're letting people know what's gonna happen to them when they're on your site. Nothing bad's gonna happen to them per se, but you need to let them know that you have cookies enabled on your site. That you could be collecting other sorts of information about them. Even if it's voluntary, if you have contact forms, you need to incorporate that into your privacy policy and just say, I'm not going to share this with anyone. I promise, Scout's honor. That's not what you say, but you have to say something that really solidifies your seriousness as a webmaster in those legal pages, legal documents. And it's also, this is interesting too, the terms of use, I don't know about privacy policy, but terms of use is actually somewhat of a ranking factor. It's been found through one of Josh Bashinsky. He's a really well-known SEO guy. One of his empirical studies found that sites that had a terms of service page, terms of use page, actually, there was, what am I trying to say? Sites with that page were seeing a boost in rankings for certain keywords. Okay, basically. So the bottom line is you want to have it both for legal purposes and for SEO purposes. It's just a good thing to have overall, these. And you can get them made very easily. There's a plugin called Gorilla Legal Pages or something like that. If you just type in legal pages and look for it, it should say Gorilla Legal Pages. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. It generates these for you. So easy peasy. Next, start adding content. This is always the fun part. Literally, it is the fun part because we've done all the boring stuff, picking our niche, buying the domain, spending money basically. This part is all about spending money. Now we get to do cool things like add content to our pages and make it look like a real website. So for this, you're obviously going to start with the homepage, but you're going to want to have a clear outline of all the main pages for your site. So I use a whiteboard, and I've used it in previous videos, but that's what I use. I use a whiteboard, and I just map out what the site's going to look like. And I have my home page, and I have my about page, my contact page, my services pages, my blog page. All the main pages for my site are mapped out, clearly outlined, and so I can go in and start adding them one by one into WordPress. And I'll either hire third-party writers to complete that content for me, or if it's a really, really important page, oftentimes I'll just write it myself. Like the homepage, I almost always write myself. The contact page, the About Me page, I almost always write myself too, because it's about me, and it's like, well, I don't want them talking about me. They don't really know me, so yeah, those are important stuff. But this is the fun part. This is where you get to produce content, you get to be creative. I at least enjoy it somewhat. And then you get to go back to doing kind of boring stuff here. So the next thing we're going to do is create our Google My Business listing. Now, this is kind of a weird one because depending on what you're doing, if you're a local website, you need to have a Google My Business listing for people to find you locally. If you're a national website, you technically don't need one. However, I still think it's good to have one because it just gives you more of a serious business identity. And I think these days, the way Google is about relevancy and about, fake news and giving people as much real information as possible, I just think it'll look a lot better to Google if you have a GMB because it lends credibility to your brand. Even if you aren't selling goods in a particular location, you're showing them that you're an actual business and you have a real address, you have real photos that show, it just lends credence to what you're doing. So I would create a GMB and you're going to have to verify it. The verification process is relatively easy. It just takes some time. So what happens is you have to request to have a postcard delivered to the address you list on your Google My Business. So you hit send a postcard. It'll send within about 5 business days to that address. All you have to do, open the envelope, read the verification code, type in the verification code onto your Google My Business, and it'll be verified right away. So yeah, it takes about a week in total, but it's just the way it is. And once you do that, then you're going to want to start optimizing it. I didn't include that here, but maybe I should. Well, you can come back and optimize it. But the next thing you're going to want to do is, now that you have that address solidified and it's all, make sure your name, address, and phone number and all the contact info is lined up correctly in your Google My Business listing. That's really important because that's going to set the baseline metric for all your other business citations you create. If those citations look a little bit different, if they have different information at all from your Google My Business, then that's going to look really bad in Google's eyes, and they're not going to count those business citations as being wholly accurate. So consistency is really key here. Once we have that ironed out, then we're going to start creating the citations. There's several main business networks that you can go into and do it. Like Yellow Pages, Hot Frog, places like that. I would recommend, though, hiring a white label service to do this for you. I just think it's a lot easier because you can go in and do it manually. You can go to 50 websites and enter your citation details. That's totally okay if you want to do that, if you have time. I just am lazy and I like to hire other people to do things. So, I would go to whitespark.ca is a really good resource, and they offer, I think it's $5 per citation. It's like $4 or $5 per citation, and you can just do a bunch. You can do 10, 20, 30 or more. There's other places too you can go that are probably cheaper than that, but Whitespark just has a lot of credibility and I like them. And they do all their citations manually, which is really nice. So that's what I would do for that. And that's just going to get all of your business information out there into the different directories online. And it's going to give you first of all, it's going to give you brand awareness, clearly, because you're getting your name out there. It's also going to give you some links, but they're going to probably be no-follow links. But still, it's good to have. It's still, somewhat of a signal to Google. And again, it lends credence that you're a legitimate brand. So good stuff. Create social profiles. So this is really important too, because social signals are a thing, and we're going to get to that next. But social profiles are Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Google+, a little less important now, but you want to create them on the main, social profile platforms like that. In addition to that, I'd also suggest creating some lesser ones on different platforms, just to have it there. Just spreading your brand awareness a little more. But The only thing I would say is if you create them in too many places, you're going to end up with a lot of accounts that aren't being used, and that's kind of a waste in my opinion. I don't know, it just seems kind of silly. So I would make sure that if you're going to create a social media profile, you should definitely post to it regularly. And that doesn't have to be as difficult as it sounds, because you can literally after every blog post you write, you can just RSS feed it out to all your different social media profiles, and you don't even have to log into them. You just log into them within WordPress to post. You don't have to go separately outside of WordPress, log into them, and do it that way. So it's really easy to do, is my point, and you can do it quickly. But don't create a bunch of profiles that you're never going to use. That's just a waste of time. Once you have that all done, then you want to send us some social signals to your website. Now, so this is kind of a sort of gray hat, I guess. It could be construed as gray hat, but there's services that you can hire to do this for you, where they'll literally send you social signals over a 20 or 30-day drip period, and you'll pay for it. You'll pay maybe 15 or 20 bucks. I think it's kind of worth it though, at least do it once to kind of get some momentum going early on. These are just services that will have people basically, link to your site through social media profiles, sending those social signals to your website. So, I mean, it's not the most legitimate white hat thing in the world, but this is SEO, so things like this happen. But I just think it's good to get initial traction to your site. And then aside from that, so this is like the baseline start, these things, and I'm going to be creating a guide showing you in depth each of these steps, showing you how to do this, walking you through the entire thing, and it's going to be really in depth and helpful. And this is going to be totally free, by the way. It's going to be a totally free guide that I'm going to be offering, just breaking down all these steps and showing you how to start your website in less than a day. Again, you can do all this stuff in under 1 day, and it's really not as hard as it seems to get up and running. But thanks a lot for watching, and I'm going to bring you that guide in the very near future, so look out for that. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for this channel. We're producing a lot of content now. We're starting to pump out about a video every day or every other day, which is fantastic. I'm super excited. There's going to be a lot of good things to come this summer and beyond, so stay tuned.